Hey everybody, this is Sicarius from Sicarius Gaming, and today I would like to go over the Rogue Dragonflight talents for both Assassination and Subtlety. First, we're going to take a look at the Assassination tree. As you can see here, we actually have two trees to choose from. One is class specific, and the other is spec specific. So first, I will be going over the class specific tree for the Assassination Rogue. And as you can see here, by default, Blizzard gives Assassination Rogues Garrote, which causes bleed damage over 18 seconds to an enemy. As you'll notice, there actually isn't a silence on this particular ability. However, if you talent down the tree here, you can see that you get improved Garrote, which adds the silence effect for 3 seconds to the ability. So I'm going to be focusing on PvP talents here rather than PvE. So for PvP, we're definitely going to be wanting Blind and Sap. And as you go through the tree, you'll notice that a lot of the abilities that were baseline for rogues are actually now talents that we have to spec into. So Blind and Sap are definitely going to be CCs that you want to spec into. It's absolutely mandatory. So is Cloak of Shadows, Feint, and Evasion. Now from here we can branch off into other talents. So here we have Master Poisoner, Numbing Poison, Nimble Fingers, Gouge. We get Gouge back. All three specs get it. Rush Setup, Tricks of the Trade, and Shadowrunner. So a couple of these you might notice are actually conduits that are currently live in the Shadowlands game, the retail version of the game. So in order for us to progress down the tree, we're going to have to choose some abilities here. So what I think are going to be mandatory are Master Poisoner and Improved Wound Poison. Now this actually allows us to stack 2 additional times on our target. So that is going to be a mandatory talent, as is Gouge for additional CC. And we're going to have to choose Tricks of the Trade here because we're going to want to get a charge of Shadow Step. Without Shadow Step, we're not really going to have that much mobility, so that's going to be a mandatory talent. Another mandatory talent that we're going to have to take is going to be Numbing Poison, so that way we can come down here and get this talent for Fleet-Footed, which increases our movement speed by 15%. And then this will actually also give us the ability to spec into Improved Garrote, which gives the silence effect to our Garrote ability. So that's also going to be mandatory. Another mandatory ability that we're going to have to take is going to be Improved Sap, which basically gets rid of the energy cost of our sap and makes it a free cost ability. So we're going to choose that. And then from here, we're going to put 2 points into Tight Spender, which reduces the energy cost of our finishing moves by a total of 15%. And then after we do that, we get Marked for Death, which is a good combo point generator, which instantly gives us 5 combo points, and the cooldown of the ability is reset if the target dies within 1 minute. So that's going to be another mandatory talent. Now for the next mandatory talent, I'm kind of stuck between Deadly Precision and Virulent Poisons. I'm more leaning towards Virulent Poisons just because of the fact that it increases the damage of our weapon poisons by a total of 20%. And then once we spec into one of these 2 talents here, they actually brought back Cold Blood in Dragonflight, so this is going to be a nice little damage increase for our critical strike for our next damaging ability, so this is going to be a mandatory talent as well. Another mandatory ability that I think we're going to want to take is going to be Leeching Poison, which adds a leeching effect to our Deadly Poison and Wound Poison, granting us 12% leech. And then from there, we're probably going to want to take Seal Fate, which when we critically strike with a melee attack, that generates combo points, we have a 100% chance to gain an additional combo point per critical strike. And this is really pretty much mandatory as an assassination rogue, because the less that we have to use mutilate as our combo point generator, the more damage we can output using Envenom. So we're going to definitely want to take that. And then from here, we're probably going to want to take lethality as well, which increases our critical strike chance by 3%. And the critical strike damage bonus of our attacks that generate combo points are also increased by 30%. So we're going to spec into that 3 times, and then that is going to open up Vigor for us, which increases our energy by 50 and our energy regen by 15%. So I think that's going to be big as well. And then from here, we're going to want to spec into Alacrity, which our finishing moves have a 20% chance per combo point to grant 2% haste for 20 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. And as an assassination rogue, you really want haste, because the more haste you have, the quicker you can generate your combo points, and the more combo points you are able to generate, the more Envenoms you're able to put out. And then this gives us one more talent point that we can spend, and we can either spend it in Deeper Stratagem, which we gain an additional combo point, so instead of 5 we get 6, or we can spec into Cheat Death, which fatal attacks that would normally kill us will reduce us to 7% of our maximum health. And then for 3 seconds after that, we take 85% reduced damage. So I think that one's going to be kind of based on your play style. In certain situations, like maybe against Mage Rogue, you're probably going to want to go Cheat Death, but in other scenarios you may want to go Deeper Stratagem. Now for the assassination tree, we got to spec into Deadly Poison, which we may or may not end up using. It all depends on if we actually have PvP talents like we currently do in live. If we do not have our hemotoxin ability, then Deadly Poison really isn't going to be used in PvP combat, because we're going to be using Wound Poison. However, if we do have the hemotoxin ability, we could probably spec out of the improved poison over here on the rogue tree, and maybe even be able to get both Deeper Stratagem and Cheat Death at the same time. So we may have to wait a little bit to see what the PvP talents are, if there are any. But as of right now, we have to spec into Deadly Poison, so we're just going to go ahead and put a point into that. And then from there, we have Fan of Knives, which we're going to want to spec into because that's our AoE ability, and it's going to be really hard being a rogue if we don't have an AoE ability, so we're going to go ahead and spec into that. That's pretty mandatory. And then from here, we have a new ability called Stealth Poison. So basically, when stealth is active, our attacks always apply our active lethal and non-lethal poisons. And then we can also spec into Shadow Step here if we didn't want to come over here on the rogue tree and pick it up from here. You could always spec into something else over here. But personally, I like the additional mobility that this gives us for specking Shadow Step over here and over here. So this would give us 2 charges of Shadow Step, which currently Assassination Rogues do not have in live. Currently only Subtlety has. So personally, I think having 2 charges of Shadow Step is going to be huge for Assassination. I don't think Stealth Poisons is going to matter too much, just because applying your poisons happens pretty quickly when you get into combat anyway, so I don't think really specking into Stealth Poisons is going to be that much of a benefit for Assassination Rogues. But we're definitely going to want to spec into Cut to the Chase, and what this does is Envenom extends the duration of Slice and Dice by up to 2 seconds per combo point spent. And I think this is going to be huge for PvP because, you know, Slice and Dice isn't something that we're going to want to spend a lot of combo points on in combat to keep up. So having Cut to the Chase whenever we Envenom extends the duration of Slice and Dice is going to be huge. And then for here, we have Elaborate Planning, which makes our finishing moves grant a total of 8% increased damage done over 4 seconds. And we have a new talent called Bloody Mess, which basically increases the damage of Garrote and Rupture by a total of 20%. This is going to be huge for Assassination Rogue, so this is going to be a mandatory talent. As you can see here, if we did manage to choose Stealth Poisons, we would also unlock Improved Poison Chance, which increases the application of our poisons by a total of 20%. And then that would also unlock Atrophic Poison. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but basically this coats our weapons with a non-lethal poison that lasts for an hour, and each strike has a 30% chance of poisoning the enemy, reducing their damage done by 3%. This isn't really a good talent, I don't think, for the sole fact of we'd lose out on crippling poison, which slows our enemy, and we would rather have our enemy slowed over having our enemy reducing the damage done to us by 3%. And then here we also have Internal Bleeding, which just adds a bleed effect to our kidney shot. I think that's going to be a really good talent, so I'm going to go ahead and choose that and spec into it twice. And each rank increases the bleed damage on your kidney shot. So on the next row here we have Poison Catarrh. Phantom Knife's damage is increased by 15% and has a 5% increased critical strike chance. That's not really going to matter too much to us in PvP combat, I don't think, so we're just going to go ahead and ignore that. Shiv, however, we can go ahead and select this one because it's going to also lead into Improved Shiv, which increases our nature damage done against a target by 20% for 9 seconds. This is going to be huge. It's currently in live, and I think it's going to be a big talent for us going into Dragonflight. And then over here we have Improved Garrote, and what this does is Garrote deals 50% increased damage and has no cooldown when used from stealth and for 3 seconds after breaking stealth. So we're going to want to go ahead and spec into that as well. Now here we have Intent to Kill. This is currently in the game now, but what Intent to Kill does in live is whenever you use Shadow Step on a teammate or a friendly, Shadow Step's cooldown is reduced by, I think it's also 33%. But here in Dragonflight, what they're doing is Shadow Step's cooldown is going to be reduced by 33% when it's used on your kill target or any enemy target that's currently affected by your Garrote. And as an Assassination Rogue, you're basically going to have Garrote up on your kill target nearly 100% of the time. So having 2 charges of Shadow Step with Intent to Kill and using Shadow Step on any enemy in arena or battlegrounds or what have you, having it reduce that cooldown by an additional 33% is going to add a lot to our mobility. So I think we should go ahead and definitely choose Intent to Kill here. So our next row is Crimson Tempest. It's just a AoE finishing move. That's probably going to be bigger for Mythic Plus, not necessarily for rated PvP, so we're going to go ahead and ignore that. We've already gone ahead and talked about Improved Shiv, so we're going to go ahead and skip on over that. Master Assassin, so when stealth is active and for 3 seconds after breaking stealth, our critical strike chance is increased by 30%. This is currently in the game now, and I think this is going to be another mandatory talent that we have to take. So we're going to go ahead and select this. And the next talent is Exsanguinate. This hasn't really been good since, I think, Legion when it was introduced. So basically you just twist your blades into the target's wounds, causing a bleed effect on them to bleed out 100% faster. This is kind of on par with the Rogue 4-piece tier set in Shadowlands, but I don't think we're going to end up taking this talent in Dragonflight. So we're going to go ahead and ignore that. So here in the next row we have Flying Daggers. Basically the radius of Phantom Knives is increased by 15 yards and deals 50% more damage when it strikes 5 or more targets. This might be good for something like RBGs if you're spinning the flag, or MBGs spinning the flag. But in rated arena, it's not mandatory at all, and you can completely ignore this talent. Next, we have something new called Vicious Venoms. Our mutilate and auto attacks deal up to 50% of their damage as nature damage against the targets affected by at least one of your weapon poisons. Um, this actually might be pretty big, so we're going to go ahead and choose this talent. Now, next we have Deathmark, and this is actually replacing Vendetta for Assassination Rogues. And what this does is you carve a death mark into your enemy, dealing bleed damage over 15 seconds. And while marked with Garrote, Rupture, and your lethal poisons applied to the target are duplicated. So if you have Garrote, Rupture, and say Deadly Poison already on your target, and then you hit death mark, then it'll double those. So you'll have 2 Garrotes, 2 Ruptures, and 2 Deadly Poisons running on your kill target. This is going to be huge. It's a mandatory talent since it replaces Vendetta, so we're going to go ahead and choose that. So this next row we have Maim and Mangle, which you might notice is currently a conduit in Shadowlands, which they're turning into a talent. I believe we're basically going to ignore this because this talent point can be spent better somewhere else within the talent tree, and it also leads into Blindside, which is pretty terrible for an Assassination Rogue. And these 2 points can be better spent somewhere else. Now, as for Amplifying Poison, this is new. It's looking like it's going to be a lethal poison that could potentially replace Deadly Poison and maybe even Wound Poison. We'll have to wait and see when the alpha and beta hit, and be able to try out the ability to see which poison is actually better. But basically what this does is it coats your weapons with a lethal poison that lasts for an hour. Each strike has a 30% chance to poison the enemy, dealing nature damage and applying amplification for 10 seconds. Venom can consume 15 stacks of amplification, and amplification deals 30% increased damage, and it stacks up to 20 times. And then the next talent here we have Twist the Knife, and this increases the duration of end venom by an additional 3 seconds. I'm not exactly sure what talent here is going to be the better one until we can get some theory crafting done on which ability is best, but it might end up being Amplifying Poison. So for the time being, we're going to go ahead and select this one. Here we have pretty much a Shadowlands legendary turned talent called Doomblade. And basically what this does is Mutilate deals an additional 30% bleed damage over 8 seconds. This is another one that I think that we're going to be able to ignore unless Sepsis, which they brought back for a Covenant ability as a rogue talent, ends up proving to be more beneficial than the talent builds that I'm going to show you here in a second. So here, the next row, we've already gone over Blindside, so I'll go ahead and skip over that one. Here we have Venom Rush, where Mutilate refunds 8 energy when used against a poison target. We currently don't really use this in live, never really have, so I have a feeling that we're going to be able to skip this one again. And here, Poison Bomb. This is pretty much one of our go-to abilities, and has been since Legion, when it was a talent with our artifact weapons. So we're more or less going to go ahead and choose Poison Bomb, because this also leads us into Dashing Scoundrel, which Envenom increases the critical strike chance of our poisons by up to 15%, and their critical strikes generate 1 energy. So we're definitely going to go ahead and spec into that. And then an absolute mandatory talent that we need to take is Venomous Wounds, where we regain 5 energy each time we Garrote, Rupture, or Internal Bleeding deals bleed damage to our poison target. So this is huge. Energy regen is a must-have as an Assassination Rogue, so we're going to go ahead and spec into that. Next talent row we have Zoldic Recipe, where our poisons and bleeds deal up to 30% increased damage to targets below 30% health. This is basically like an execute. It was a legendary in Legion, and it's currently a legendary in Shadowlands. But I don't think we're going to end up choosing this talent. We've already gone into Dashing Scoundrel, so I'll go ahead and skip over that. And then our next talent that I think is pretty much going to be mandatory was actually a Azerite trait in Battle for Azeroth, which they've turned into a talent called Scent of Blood, where Rupture increases our agility based on our character level, and we gain this benefit for each enemy suffering from Rupture. And so basically, this is a complete damage increase. So if you're, say, in threes, if you have 3 Ruptures going on your target, on each target, then your damage is going to be increased overall. So this is pretty much a mandatory talent to take. And from there, we have Tiny Toxic Blades, where Shiv deals 500% increased damage and no longer cost any energy. That's okay though, because Shiv only costs like 25 energy on live. I'm pretty sure it's more or less going to be the same in Dragonflight, so we're going to go ahead and ignore it. This frees us up, however, for the Dragon Tempered Blades, as I was alluding to earlier, where we can apply 1 additional lethal and non-lethal poison to our weapons. So that's going to be huge. So we more or less have 4 poisons running at any given time. Then here we have Indiscriminate Carnage, where our next Garrote and next Rupture also apply to all enemies within 10 yards of the target, dealing reduced damage beyond 8 targets. This might be pretty big for battlegrounds and rated battlegrounds if you happen to be in the team fight, or if you got a lot of people coming to your node that you're trying to defend, and you constantly have damage rolling on all nearby targets up to 8, and that could be pretty useful in a team fight. So I think you would end up choosing this for battlegrounds and rated battlegrounds, and Dragon Temper Blades if you're doing arena. So there you have it. This is the rogue talents for Assassination, and just the rogue overall that I think that we're going to want to take for Dragonflight.